Good morning, my dear colleagues. Today is a great day for me. It is the first Mosh in Daba I attend since I got another opportunity to serve the Mosh Learning Hub in my new role responsible for modernization and safety. I am and have always been very proud to be associated with the Mosh Learning Hub. I'm proud about the Mosh Learning Hub for their role in our beloved industry's journey to zero harm. In 2007, the year in which the industry decided we need a Mosh-type initiative, there were 220 fatalities. Last year, there were 77. During that same time, serious injuries and occupational diseases have also reduced significantly. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the Mosh Learning Hub has made an immense contribution to these improvements. But my dear colleagues, this is not only about the numbers, but also about the lives of like you and I. Mr. Dambuza of Lonman's life was actually saved by a net and bolt during a rockfall accident. Mr. Moranamela of Cell 32, his life was saved by a PDS on a machine after he collapsed in a travel way due to a medical condition. The videos of their stories, with their loved ones celebrating them being alive, touched the heart of many of us. And that brings me to the other reason why I'm so proud to be associated with the Mosh. They were the ones who brought to the South African mining industry a change management process that puts people at the heart of the actual change. They call it, as you saw in the video, adoption. And when parents adopt a child, like Duncan, where's Duncan? Duncan, who played the video. Duncan and his wife adopted a child. Love for that child is at the heart of their decision. And that is the idea that the Mosh is promoting. When you make change, the change can only happen through people. Hence, people need to be placed at the heart of that change. Many of us who have been studying in engineering and physics and occupational hygiene and all these disciplines, we struggle with this concept. We are used to changes that happen through dictates that come from the top. But you and I all know from our own personal experience how difficult it is to change our behavior. From my own experience, it took me about 3 years and 10 failed attempts to stop smoking. And yet we grapple with the notion that the understanding of people's beliefs, their attitudes, their values, and their current behaviors, especially those people who will be affected by the actual change, is the very foundation of making the change impactful and also sustainable. As leaders, from the CEOs down, we often think we know it all, and we resist the fact that we ourselves have to change our behaviors to see others change theirs. These are some of the very uncomfortable mirrors that the Mosh Learning Hub has actually put in front of us and continues to do so. The Mosh Learning Hub is, however, not only talking about this matter, they are actually walking their own talk. They were one of the first organizations in South Africa who appointed behavioral science experts in the design and implementation of their own change programs. This is a global leading practice in its own right. I don't know how many of you know that the UK government in 2010 and the USA government in 2014 established behavioral science units in their governments to consider how policy will actually needs to be implemented through the change in people's behavior. The Mosh Learning Hub also made a big decision by establishing what they called a behavioral interest group. This big group has done an incredible amount of work, including intensive literature work and observational field studies, to understand exactly what is the role of us as people when it comes to change. All of this, in my view, puts the Mosh Learning Hub at the cutting edge of people-centered change management. Because the only thing, my dear colleagues, that will not change in our own personal lives, in the South African mining industry and in the world, is change itself. In our beloved industry, we have seen many changes take place over the last century and more. But much more change is going to be needed. With the challenges that we have around our quest for zero harm, we know that we have to modernize this industry. We have to come up with new methods to which we're going to mine. We need to also modernize our industry to unlock much of the 39 trillion rand of resources that still lie below the South African earth, which are currently unminable due to safety, health, or economic reasons. And we also need to modernize this industry of ours to extend the lives of the mines and help the more than 2 million people who currently depend on mining in South Africa. The technology innovation, which will come through mechanization and automation, that will actually determine the size and the pace at which the change takes place. If the change that lies behind us is the size of a mouse, the change that lies ahead of us is the size of a gigantic African elephant. If the change that lies behind us came at the pace of a tortoise, the pace of the change that lies ahead of us is that of an African cheetah. However, it is people and only people who will make the change happen. And my hope for the future is that as people, we can make changes in a no pain, all gain manner. And this, dear colleagues, is the fascinating opportunity I believe that the Mosh Learning Hub has. And I challenge the Mosh today to position itself as the champion of change management in which people are actually at the heart of that change. Whilst the technologies and the systems are being developed through the WITS Mining Institute and Tukkies, I see Ronnie is here and Fred are here, CSIR, Mine Health and Safety Council, all of them are involved in actually developing these technologies. Whilst all of that is happening, the Mosh Learning Hub has the opportunity to position itself and to ready the industry for the change to come. And this needs to be done not by just talking about it, but by some concrete interventions. Now let me for a moment pause as to what such concrete interventions could be. Let us just for a moment think about the expertise that we have in our organizations to deal with a people-centered, big and fast change. Previously, we had Douwe Cronje in the Mosh Learning Hub, who was our behavioral science expert. And Douwe used to say that in our organizations, we have rock engineers to understand the behavior of rocks and to deal with the way in which they change. We have mechanical engineers to understand and deal with machine behavior. And we have occupational hygienists to understand and deal with ventilation system behavior. Yet, we say change only happens through people. And my question to you today, and I hope the panel is also going to deliberate on that, is do we have the expertise in our organizations to understand and help us with the change in people behavior that will make the big and fast changes that lie ahead of us? You may argue that we have huge HR departments in our organizations. My personal view, and I know this is a massive generalization, but that is the view that I hold at the moment, is that the priority KPIs of those HR departments are not to help people deal with the big and fast changes that lie ahead of us. Organizations, in my experience, do not have the behavioral science expertise that we need for the changes that lie ahead. And this is where I believe the Mosh Learning Hub can play a very, very important role, to make sure that our organizations are actually equipped to make these big and fast changes through a people-centered approach. The second question is whether the training or the coaching of our leaders at all levels ready them to lead people through the big and fast changes that are to come. Again, my personal view is that is not actually the case. And this is the second concrete intervention where I believe that the Mosh Learning Hub can actually play a role. The good news for all of us is that we as people can change, and that we are the ones who actually make change happen. And that is the very thing that excites me about today, because today we are going to engage with each other on case studies at minds that have managed to make change through people-centered approaches. So we all stand ready and to listen and to learn about how these minds brought about change in the spirit of Ubuntu, which says, I am because we are. I thank you.